Viktor Frankl was a Jewish psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust. His wife, his father, his mother, his brother all died in the Nazi concentration camps, but he managed to survive. He became well known for his writings about meaning and hope. And in one of his 39 books, his Man's Search for Meaning, he explained that a hope for the future was the single most important factor in determining whether his fellow prisoners in the concentration camp survived or not. Whether there's something to look forward to cling on to believe in, was the number one determinant of whether, of course, unless they're murdered by Nazis, okay, that was the number one determinant of whether they were going to survive that long incarceration. And his great insight was that we are all powerfully driven by our views of the future. Or to put it another way, what we believe about the future powerfully determines the kind of life we experience today. And what we perceive of our future powerfully determines how we experience life today. The more we have something to look for in the future, the more powerful, the more power, the more purpose we will have for the present. Conversely, if we can't foresee a future worth working towards and suffering for, we will have little motivation for living and even less resiliency to put up with adversity. Now, all this may sound very abstract, but I think it's quite easy to illustrate this. Suppose two young men are enlisting for national service. Okay, something many of you can identify. Two young men is enlisting for national service. One is told, okay, what happens to us? He's told that, well, he just has to go through these 2 years, no choice, required, compulsory by law. But at the end of 2 years, he will simply be released from his national service liability, and then he can carry on with his life. Okay, he can pick up from where he left off. Another guy is told that when he completes his 2 years of national service, he will be given a free HDB flat. He will have all his university fees paid up for him, and on top of all that, he will receive $1 million in cash. Think about that. Now, it is all hypothetical, of course, but we can engage a little thought exercise to imagine how differently these two guys will go through their national service days, their 2 years, right? You can imagine the first guy, well, he's just like all of you, right? He sees NS as an unwelcome disruption, it's a delay to his life. Well, he may agree at an intellectual level that without a strong defense force, we will not even have a country at all, so this is necessary evil, I just have to go through it. But like most of us, he drags himself through that 2 years, right? Everything is a chore, everything sucks, all his superiors are jerks, and he basically lives for the weekends when he can book out of camp. That's all he has to look forward to. Life sucks for that 2 years anyway. But it'd be totally different for the second guy, wouldn't it? The monotony, the regimentation of military life are just a temporary, a small inconvenience that he's more than willing to put up with in view of what he is anticipating to come at the end of it. He wakes up each day, he goes through each day whistling, doing things with joy, he does his job cheerfully. No matter what happens, no matter how unreasonable his superiors are, nothing can really get him down. Nothing can dampen his spirits. So two persons can encounter exactly the same circumstances in life and yet have radically different subjective experiences. What's the difference? The difference lies simply in that the second guy has a hope that the first guy does not have. He can sincerely quote all the well-known school mottos, like the hope for a better age, the best is yet to be, and all that. It's true for him because hope makes a world of difference. Hope is not just something good to have. It is as essential to life as air and water. The catch is this. Our hope, what we pin our hopes on, is only as good as the certainty of what we look forward to. Is it going to happen? How reliable is it? If we put our trust in something that is uncertain, like striking the lottery, that does not have the same galvanizing power as hope. In fact, when we hope in something uncertain, it produces lots of anxiety and stress. Hope requires not only that we expect something better, but that something better is also something that we can be certain of. Which brings us to the question for today. Can we have hope if this world, this life is all that there is? If there is no such thing as God, can we have hope without God? Now, as we have been saying this series, more and more people assume now, today, that it's possible, especially among young people. But hey, let's take a closer look. Okay, let's say what the Bible has to say about hope, and there's lots to say about hope because hope is so essential to life. And today we won't just look at a passage found in Romans chapter 8, verses 18 to 25. I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. For the creation waits an eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. For the creation was subject to frustration, not by its own choice, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself be liberated from its bondage to decay and brought into the freedom and glory of the children of God. We know that the whole creation has been groaning, as in the pains of childbirth, right up to the present time. Not only so, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for adoption to sonship, the redemption of our bodies. For in this hope we were saved, but hope that is seen is no hope at all. Who hopes for what they already have? But if we hope for what we do not yet have, we wait for it patiently. Okay, this is a difficult passage. Huh? I know. Okay, this series has not been so easy. Last week, after I went home, one of my children came home and said, I didn't understand a word of what you're saying. Then another came home and said, I don't know what you're talking about. You know? But, okay, this is a difficult passage, but there are some really profound things that are hard to understand without some help. I'll try to explain some of it as we go along, but let me make a preliminary point here, and it is this: the Bible is a very realistic book. Okay? It confronts the hard truth that in this life, we live in a broken world, right? And we face many difficulties, and it is a world filled with suffering. We all know that to be true. The question is, can we continue to maintain hope in such a world? And the answer to that depends on whether we have reasons to believe that there's going to be something better, that there's something worth living for. Bear it in mind as we tackle the implications of finding hope in a world without God. Okay, the implications. Firstly, let's look at the implications. Hope is based on the expectation that there's going to be something better, right? That things will get better, and also that the precious things, the things you value right now, will not be taken away from you. And what motivates us, okay, that's so important, because what motivates us to get up and go to work and work hard each day is the anticipation that it will improve our life. It will make things better for us, for our family. What enables us to endure hardship that we will inevitably face is the prospect that bad things will eventually pass, bad things will be put right, that they will not have the last word. Which means, if that's hope, what hope is about, it means we are going to run into major obstacles. We believe that this world is all that there is. Why? Okay, let me just give you 3 reasons. First, we live in a finite and broken planet, which sets a hard limit on how much human progress there can be. Actually, the Bible, as we've seen, it presents us a very interesting perspective of the world's condition, as we saw in Romans 8:20. Let's look at that part again, okay, because it's profound. It says, for the creation was subjected to frustration, not by its own choice, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself be liberated from its bondage to decay and brought into the freedom and glory of the children of God. So what the Bible and what this passage is really telling us is that our world has been broken by human sin. Okay, God originally created it perfect. No pain, no suffering, no sorrow, no death. But because of human sin, the world we live in is under curse. And this is manifested in all kinds of problems, right? Like natural disasters, like diseases, like decay, right? But here, what it's telling us is that God promises one day that He will restore everything to perfection when Jesus returns. Okay, when He talks about the children of God. And that's when Jesus returns and we take our full status as children of God. Now, that is the framework of the Bible. And that's what the Bible promises. That's the hope that is provided in the Bible. Now, if that's not true, if there is no God, okay, if this world is all that there is, what hope is there? Okay, the question is, what hope is there for a broken world, especially when the negative effects of a broken world are aggravated by human beings? Next month, the world will cross a frightening major milestone. Do you know what it is? That's right, it will reach 8 billion people for the first time. 8,000 million people. Okay, And it took all, okay, the thing is this, no? If you take a look at this chart. What is, so staggering is this. It took all of human history until the year 1800, just 220 over years ago, until the year 1800, for the world population to reach 1 billion people. Very slow. And then what happened? The Industrial Revolution happened. And because of the Industrial Revolution, it took only 130 years to double to 2 billion people, and then only 44 years to double again to 4 billion people. Okay? And it's still growing rapidly, slowing down a bit, but hey, most of you, especially in this congregation, will still be around when the world crosses 10 billion people. Projected to be in the year 2057. I think that's 35 years from now, right? Most of you will still be around. And imagine that. How crowded the MRT trains are going to be. Right? 10 billion people pursuing a higher standard of living, all at the expense of the finite resources of the planet, or polluting the planet. There just isn't enough for everybody, for everyone. And because there won't be enough, well, many experts are saying there's going to be lots of competition, and that those will inevitably lead to strife, to conflicts, and to more warfare. But at a subjective level, we sense this, right? My generation grew up fully expecting that our lives will be better than our parents' life. That we'll experience a higher standard of living than our parents. But today, you are the young people, right? The young people today have serious doubts about that. And I don't blame you, right? Doesn't help when every week you hear about HDB flats being sold for over $1 million, right? Wow, then you say, better go and find a partner, BTO first, however unromantic that is. Today, we face heightened threats from a whole host of problems that there are no easy solutions to. Environmental disaster, nuclear annihilation, terrorism, pandemics. In the last 2 years, 6 million people have died from COVID already. And we don't know when the next pandemic will come, but it's just a matter of time, and it may be far worse than that. Which is why I think Marvel's Infinity War, right? It struck the chord in many people, I think especially young people. And I spoke to quite a few young people and asked them, what do you really think? And they said that they think it is a good idea. If there's someone like Thanos who will wipe out half of all life with just a snap of his fingers. I think, I was shocked by their response, but I think it reflects the pessimism that they feel, you guys feel about the future of the world. Right? Half the people die now. Then we can start buying HDB flats again. Okay, I think that pessimism is warranted. A lot of people say, all this will be overcome by technology. Remember, there's this guy called Malthus who said, the world is doomed because population will increase faster than food production, and then technology, the Industrial Revolution came, yes, solve all that problem. But, technology, it used to raise hopes, right? But now it increases anxiety exponentially. Until fairly recently, it was believed that machines could never beat humans at chess. But it now happens routinely. In fact, now human beings rely on machines to cheat other human beings at chess. Okay, you've been reading Okay? And the truth is, we all now fear that machines will not only take away all our jobs, but they will take over the world as well in a dystopian future. If this world is all that there is, well, hope is becoming more and more uncertain. Secondly, one of the hardest things to cope with in life is injustice. Right? Justice is a nice thing to think about and talk about until you suffer injustice personally. If you've ever been discriminated against, oppressed, wrongfully accused, or even seriously hurt, your heart will cry out for justice. You will demand justice. The problem is that in this life, justice is often denied. It is not done. Right? A wise man in the Bible said this in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 16 to 17. He said, "And I saw something else under the sun. In the place of judgment, wickedness was there. In the place of justice, wickedness was there. I said to myself, God will bring into judgment both the righteous and the wicked." This week, I spoke to somebody who, some really bad things. Some people did some really bad things to him more than 20 years ago. But even the passage of that long period of time, he was obviously not fully healed from it. He still yearns for justice to be done, for the truth to be told, for himself to be vindicated, although he knows that the chances are practically nil. But interestingly, as we spoke about it, what prevents him from giving in to bitterness or trying to retaliate is that, like this writer here, he believes that there is a divine judge of all the earth who will settle all accounts eventually. That there will be justice. But what if there isn't? What if there isn't such a judge? What if God does not exist? You see, the implication of tossing God out of the picture is that there will be no court of higher appeal. There will be no further recourse. No hope that good will be rewarded and evil will be dealt with, and you're suffering injustice, that you will be vindicated. Without God, what basis is there to stop your hearts from being poisoned either by bitterness or despair? What motivation is there to go on living if you are being oppressed and you see no way out of it? There is none. The third and biggest enemy of hope is, of course, death. Okay, let's look at a passage that we saw last week again, Ecclesiastes 3, 20 to 21, that puts it so eloquently. The writer says, all go to the same place, all come from dust, and to dust all return. Who knows if the human spirit rises upward and the spirit of the animal goes down into the earth? If there is no God, if there's nothing beyond this world, then how are human beings different from animals? We all die and we all become nothing. Hope relies on improvements and progress, but death makes a cruel mockery of all that. Because it doesn't matter how much you've accumulated, how much you've achieved, death will surely reduce you from hero to zero. It is the ultimate destroyer of hope. Yesterday, I was telling my family, hey, you heard the player, the actor who played Hagrid in Harry Potter has just died. And then my smart Alex son said, yes, how sad. All of them will die on us eventually. And he's right. And not only is that true, that all these actors will die on us eventually, all of us, our family, will die on him eventually as well. That's reality. If this world is all that there is, not only will death destroy everyone totally eventually, it will keep cutting us off from the best thing in life, the people we love and the people who love us. Without God, what can we logically expect is that all good things will be lost eventually, and wrong things will never be put right. You see, any worldly hope is a house built on sand. And yet our heart needs something more concrete than that. Our heart longs for something more than that. And that's the second point, the inclinations of our heart. Takes it to say, the inclinations of our heart. I once watched a play about a loving couple who lived in Japan. Her husband was sent off to fight for the country in the Second World War. Right? Initially, the wife received some letters, but they got fewer and fewer. And eventually they stopped coming. When the war ended, she would make her way to the local train station every day and wait on the platform so that at the first opportunity she can welcome her husband back after so many years of separation. But one day, a telegram arrived informing her that her husband had been confirmed killed in action. And she wept bitterly at the news. Next day, what did she do? She woke up, she dressed up, and she made her way to the train station to wait. And the day after that, and the day after that, and the play ended. The story stuck in my mind because it portrayed the overwhelming need for human need for hope. We have to find hope in something to live for even when all hope is lost. The question is, why do human beings need hope? Well, in a framework of thinking about God, naturalism that says that nature is all that there is, naturalism tells us that, hey, this is just a random instinct. Okay? It's a random instinct that one, because of mutation, right? One of our ancestors had. And then it came down to us, through evolution, because that instinct enabled people to work hard for a better future and to put up with great adversity. And so they were, of course, better at passing down their genes to others. And here we are, and so we have that instinct. Is that really all that there is? Or is there an alternative story? Is there a better explanation? Is there another narrative that resonates better with our own hearts? There is. And you find it in the Bible, in the passage we read just in an earlier Bible passage. Romans 8:23 says, "Not only so, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for our adoption to sonship, the redemption of our bodies." Why do we, we hope because we have a longing for two things. This verse says, I can summarize them as a perfect love and a perfect life. We long for a perfect love and we long for a perfect life. A perfect love that comes through our redemption to sonship by God, that He will make us His own children. And a perfect life by the redemption of our bodies. And we have such longings only because we were born in the image of Adam, and so we have a memory imprint of the life we were made for but never had a chance to experience. Adam and Eve were created as part of a world that God declared as being very good, a world without imperfection, a world without any barriers between human beings and God. They were made to be loved by God, and they had unhindered access to Him. Could walk with Him, poetically, the Bible says, in the cool of the garden. Perfect life, perfect love. That's what we were made for. But by our rebellion, not only did we cut ourselves off from God and encourage in condemnation, we also brought chaos into creation, including into our lives. The result? Well, we see all around us pain, sorrow, interpersonal discord, wars, diseases, decay, eventually death. But we, in spite of the fall, we have not forgotten what we were designed for because it's hardwired into us. We still have a hunger, but now it's a hunger that cannot be met by this broken world and when we are separated from God. And that is why we hope. We are simply longing to be ourselves, to be who we really are. Few people have experienced the dysfunction of broken world more acutely than the Old Testament character Job. Right? He lost everything. He lost everyone that was of value to him in his life. And then he cried out to God. And the heaven was like lead, no answer for a long, long time. And what's the most bewildering part of all this was that Job was a far more pious and godly person than everybody else of his time. And Hey, if being such a good person did not guarantee him a trouble-free life, did not give him an open line to God, what hope is there for anyone? No wonder his wife told him, just die lah. Try so hard for what? Yet, at his lowest point, when all hope was lost, Job clung on to one hope. What's that hope? You find it in Job 19:25, when he says, I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end he will stand on the earth, and after my skin has been destroyed, yet in my flesh I will see God. I myself will see him with my own eyes, I and not another. How my heart yearns within me. We all have this yearning in our hearts. The yearning for a Redeemer who will restore us to perfect love and a perfect life. Job's declaration about this Redeemer was just profoundly prophetic. Remember, he wrote this thousands of years ago. Yet, he said this thousands of years ago. And it's so prophetic. First of all, he said his Redeemer would stand on the earth, meaning he would belong to this physical realm. Secondly, he would also exist beyond this earthly realm, because Job says, I will see him after death, after my skin has been destroyed. Not only that, after his death, he says, Job, will experience the Redeemer in his flesh. In other words, Job will not be removed from his diseased and decaying body to become a disembodied spirit floating in the cloud somewhere. Instead, his physical body itself will be restored, and so that he can be in relationship with his Redeemer. In fact, the New Testament tells us that this creation will not be done away with, but God will one day restore it to perfection, this physical creation. Now, we now know what Job didn't know, that this Redeemer will be none other than Jesus Christ, Son of God, came in human form, and therefore he is of this world and yet not of this world. You see, Job was a good man, but Jesus was flawless. He was the only perfect man, and yet Jesus suffered far more than Job. He experienced the agony that we deserve as sinners. He came to take our place, and by taking our place, he made us acceptable to God, so that for all who trust in God, God will adopt them as his sons. Because we have a Redeemer, we have the hope of redemption. Our longing for perfect life and for perfect love are not just wishful thinking, pie in the sky. They are not a random accident. Our longing is not just a random accident of evolution passed down to us. We were made for that. And we can be satisfied. Our longing can and be satisfied when we see Christ with our own eyes one day. We have an assured hope which makes all the difference, not just for next life, but for this life as well. Which brings me to my final point. The inspiration. The inspiration for living this life now, today. Now, many people assume that Christianity is useful only basically for the next life. For heaven, for eternal life. And because of that, many unbelievers we talk to, maybe some of you are here, you think Christianity, well, of course, it's not a bad thing, right? It offers good things, teaches us good things, but you feel no urgency to explore it, let alone to embrace it. Why? Because, hey, heaven can wait lah. In the meantime, I need to fight my own battles on earth, and I also get to call the shots in my own life as well. I can live on my own terms. Maybe when I get closer to death, I'll consider it. Even Christians fall into this trap all the time. We treat Christianity basically as fire insurance. And then in the meantime, we live just like the rest of the world without applying the wonderful truths of Christianity in our lives. Remember what Viktor Frankl taught us? What we believe about our future powerfully determines our experience of the present. What you put your hope in defines how satisfying, meaningful, and resilient your life now will be. The Christian hope is far more wonderful, more assured, more personal than anything that this world has to offer, and hence it provides us with the potential to provide us with more inspiration for living than anything else possibly can. In fact, the Christian hope is so powerful that it gives us strength even to endure the worst that life can throw at us. Romans chapter 18 and 25 says this, I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. Verse 25, but we hope for what we do not yet have, we wait for it patiently. Now, the writer of this, Apostle Paul, was no stranger to suffering. He wrote from personal experience. He was repeatedly beaten, stoned, flogged, imprisoned, and finally executed for following Jesus Christ. Yet, throughout that time, he lived a life of joy. And he constantly urged us to rejoice with him and like him. How could that be? He says he found inspiration in the glory that will be revealed in us, in the wonderful future that is in store for all those who have put their trust in Jesus Christ. And that is what enables us to wait patiently. You see, when something big enough to look forward to, you can put up with just about anything. Last week, I met up with a group of brothers, and just sometime was sharing and praying. And then one of them, his wife was going to give birth for the first time soon. So the rest of us guys were sharing with him our expert experience about giving birth. Not that any of us had actually given birth, of course. But it caused me to remember when I went back and to marvel at how my wife chose to deliver our first 3 children without using an epidural. Now, for those of you who are informed, it's a way to numb your lower body so you feel zero pain, okay, in childbirth. Our 4th kid was born by cesarean. So first kid, she chose not to use an epidural. And in hindsight, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody giving birth. But what inspired her to put up with the pain was hope, the anticipation of the arrival of a new life. When you have a big enough hope, you can put up with anything. And Paul elaborates on this in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 14 to 18. He says, the one who raised the Lord Jesus from the dead will also raise us with Jesus and present us with healed to himself. And that's how you're going to have perfect life, right? All this is for your benefit so that the grace is reaching more and more people because thanksgiving to overflow to the glory of God. Therefore, we do not lose heart, no matter how hard life is. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day, for our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes, not on what is seen, but what is unseen. For since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. We are wasting away outwardly. Okay, how true? You guys are very young, so most of you, it's hard for you to imagine this, but you will get there. Several years ago, recently, I went for my annual medical checkup. And I was told, hey, your BMI has gone up, so you need to lose some weight. But actually, I had not put on any weight. What happened was, I realized I had grown shorter. Even shorter. Okay, that's what happens when you age. And because the BMI squares your height, right? The impact is magnified. So now you're overweight. Without putting on any weight. Amazing. Okay, the outer man is decaying. And guys, you look so young, but I guarantee you it will happen to you too. Okay. I have worked 30 years. I paid hospitalization for the first 28 years of my life. I paid hospitalization insurance and never claimed a cent. So to me, it's a waste of money. Well, in the last 2 years, I claimed about $100,000. I got back all the money that I put in already. That's comforting, but it's also disturbing, right? We grow old. We grow weak. We grow sick. Outwardly, we are, as Paul says, wasting away. And our body's decaying condition is just a reflection, a part of a world that is in decay. Everything goes downhill. Nothing in this world will last. All good things will come to an end sooner or later. What this means is, if you fix your eyes, which is just another way of saying, if you put your hope in what is seen, what is in this world, you will live in a certain way, in a certain kind of way. If you fix your eyes on something, but you cannot get it, you are going to lose hope. That something might be wealth, success, looks, a life partner, children, or even health. Whatever it is, not having it is going to make you feel depressed, inferior compared to people who have, envious of them, and resentful about life. And even if you get it, even if you have it, because your hope is just an earthly hope and hence an insecure hope, you will always be anxious to protect what you have. And that's going to cause you to become cowardly and calculative about life. You will end up, as a result, living defensively, and because of that, selfishly. One of the greatest joys of being in church, and especially of being in a full-time staff team, is that I'm constantly surrounded by very inspiring people. Earlier, I shared about Sister Judy, who decided to come on full-time as a pastor in the church, as well as to head our community outreach partner, Brighton Connection. What I didn't share with you was that when we approached her recently, she had just received an order for Google, from Google, a job offer from Google. How many of you love to work for Google, young people? It perfectly fits her expertise and her experience, and it promised great career and monetary incentives. If her hope had been this world, she could have easily rationalized and say, hallelujah, this must be God's provision, this is God's open door. But she chose to forego all that and to come for work for much less in a job she had never done before. Now, of course, we can praise her, commend her for being, so obedient, so courageous, so selfless, and she is all that, rightfully. But ultimately, it is more than that. It is because she has put her hope in something that is truly secure. She has set her eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. How about you guys? What have you put your hope in? Okay, we seldom think about that so concretely, right? But would it be, whatever you fix your eyes on, would it be what is seen or what is unseen? Do you find yourself, okay, here's a good way to evaluate. Do you find yourself living each day with gusto, with motivation? Do you find yourself boldly seeking and obeying God's will, taking risks, stepping out in faith, doing things you've never done before? Do you find yourself relating to people basically with a posture of love, seeking to share, to give, to bless rather than to receive, to be served? Do you experience patience, joy, confidence, even in the midst of adversity, when you go through hard times, when you experience injustice? Or do you find yourself becoming fearful and depressed despite the good life that you have? Fearful and depressed about your finances, about your jobs, about your looks, about your family, about children, about your health, about your relationships, or the lack of relationships. You see, you can say, that's Sister Judy, she's just like that, I'm not like her. No. It is all about a choice that we make. Where do we put our hope in? What do we fix our eyes on? Our feelings are powerfully shaped by our hopes on what we hope in. What we really need are a perfect life and perfect love. Just look within your hearts and you know that that's true. Isn't that what you are pursuing? And those needs can ultimately only be met by fixing our eyes on Jesus Christ, author and perfecter of our faith. On the cross, He experienced utter hopelessness in our place. My God, why have you forsaken me? He was the only human being who had ever lived a perfect life and experienced perfect love, but He gave that up so that we can have them by trusting in Him. That's the glorious hope that Christianity offers to us.